Hello and happy Friday. It's me again, Alex Cox, back with another installment of Friday Family History Fun. At least I hope so. I can see a good number of people have tuned in already, so I'll waffle for a few more minutes and then we will dive into the main event. But yeah, hello to everybody. Can see Rosie in bright and early. Hello, Rosie. Hope you're all well. Let me know where you're watching from. Don't be shy. Join the chat. Hello, Patricia. Hello, Robin. All coming in thick and fast. Hello, Karen. Hello, Kim. Hello, Jackie. Oh, there's so many I'm struggling to keep up. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Linda. Hello, Nicole. Hello, Sue. Hello, everybody. Hello, one and all. Thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'll do my general intro. I always tend to do just to get it out of the way. If you're tuning in for if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We do these every single Friday. It's a good opportunity for us to just tell you what's new at Find My Past, what we've been working on, let you know about any behind the scenes gossip we might be able to share. Share tips and tricks for research, breaking down brick walls. But more importantly, talk directly to you. This is a mutual dialogue. It's not just me ranting and raving at you. We're also very keen to hear from you. So yeah, please do get involved in the comments. If you have any questions about anything, whether it's specific to Find My Past or family history in general, do pop them in the comments. I will try my best to answer any questions I see coming in live, but we're also joined by a whole host of incredibly knowledgeable and very generous community members who will often jump at the chance to help a newbie or fledgling family historian break down a brick wall or make a breakthrough in their research. So don't be shy. If you've got a question, do ask them. I can see we've got people watching from all over the shop, which is lovely. We've got Janet in Colorado, Matthew very chilly where he is. I can't remember where that is, but I know it's in the UK. Andrew said it's been quite sunny here in Lancashire, but now clouding over. It's practically dark where I am now in Twickenham. It does feel like the winter is setting in. And Karen has reminded me, yes, let's all bid a very warm welcome to Jessie. Jessie, who is manning the comments this week. Jessie is the newest member of the Find My Past team. She's working alongside myself, Ellie, and Niall, and already proving to be an enormous asset. So yeah, Jessie is in the comments today and will be speaking to you directly. Hello, Jessie, and thank you for helping today. So what are we talking about today? Well, I must admit, I've had quite the dramatic afternoon. I'm not as well prepared as I normally am for these broadcasts. Not making excuses, but my son, my 1-year-old son, was the victim of. I shouldn't laugh. Well, I can laugh now. We know he's okay, but was the victim of a savage donkey attack. He he was taken to his favourite petting zoo, which I hope remains his favourite petting zoo, by my wife this afternoon, and his poor little hand was savagely bitten by a donkey, and he spent the afternoon in A&E because they were worried his finger was broken. Thankfully, his finger is intact. It's just some scratches, nothing, some Calpol and a dose of antibiotics to prevent infection. Won't solve. But yeah, poor little mate. He's been in the wars today, literally savaged by a poor donkey. And as we know from some of the more weird and wonderful reports in our newspaper archives, donkeys can be quite dangerous when they want to. But no, he's okay. He's okay. Hopefully, it doesn't put him off for donkeys for life. But yeah, I just thought I'd tell you. Very surreal afternoon. I've been on the phone to a very panicked mum all afternoon. But yeah, I know he's okay. He'll be home shortly. His finger's intact, just some bruises and scratches. Yeah, poor thing. Apparently, it was quite scary when it happened. But yeah, donkeys, they can be savage. So yeah, that's my excuse for not being as perhaps streamlined as I normally am on a Friday. But we do have lots of interesting things to talk about. So we've got, if you're watching in the US, we have some we've got a lot of new records for you this week. I believe over 22 million of them, and quite an interesting, historically rich collection as well, which I'm looking forward to telling you a little bit more about. I mean, it wouldn't be Fridays Live if we didn't spend a bit of time talking about this week's new records. So yeah, we'll be taking a look at those. And then because I didn't have quite as much time to prepare as normal, I know some of you love these. I know some of you don't love them so much, but I thought it would be fun to do another Friday on this day pop quiz. Today is the 19th of November. What amazing things happened on this day throughout the different eras of history? Numerous ones. So I've got 5 questions for you. I've acted on feedback I've had on previous on this day pop quizzes, and they're not quite as hard as some of the ones that I've done in the past, which were prohibitively difficult. I think some of these questions are fun and they should be able to answer. So stay tuned for 5 pub quiz style on this day questions. If any of you are watching in Ireland, hopefully it'll bring a little bit of the pub to you. I've heard from Niall that Ireland's pubs are shutting down. It's a travesty. And if anyone's watching in Australia as well, I believe you're entering another lockdown as well. So thoughts and prayers are with you all. But that's why it's great that we get to hang out remote digitally, wonders of modern technology, all stay in touch and communicate with each other. A lot of you I haven't met, but you all feel like real friends, and that's why I always look forward to doing these. But yeah, as Sally said, brace yourselves, everybody, for this week's on this day quiz. You could cheat by doing a little bit of googling because all questions are going to be related to events that happened on the 19th of November, but I urge you not to. There are no prizes to give away. Sadly, it's going to be a fingers first kind of doodah. Whoever gets the right answer in the comments quickest wins that question. Might try and tally them up. We'll see how we get on. But yeah, it's just respect from me and the other community members if you get the questions right. So yeah, new records on this day quiz. And then we're going to round it up with some tips for exploring the history of your local area and community. We talk about family history a lot. We talk about house history a lot. But a lot of the resources that you will be using for both of those are also just as good for discovering more about the history of your local area and the community that lived within it. That's something I thoroughly enjoyed doing. So yeah, that leads me on nicely to this week's question of the week. We ask these at the start of all of them just to get the conversation going. Question of the week. Let me know, have any of you actually done any local history research? It doesn't have to be about you, it doesn't have to be the history of the area in which you actually live. It could have you one of the things I often quite like doing, because context is so important, I think, and one of the things I really do enjoy about family history is once I've honed in on an ancestor and I know who they are, I like to go as deep as I possibly can to try and travel through time, put myself in their shoes, and get a real sense for what their daily lives were actually like. And one of the best ways of doing that is learning the lay of the land. What was happening in the area they were living in at that time? So, yeah, back to the question. What have you discovered about the history of your local area or community? It doesn't have to just be the history of your local area or community. It could be the history of an area your ancestors lived in. So let us know. And as always, we're hungry for any tips you might have around this. I know that lots of people watching are incredibly knowledgeable. Some of you have actually been researching for almost as long as I've been alive, I believe. So if any of you have any magic bullets for doing exactly this, delving into the history of a specific location, let us know in the comments. Are there any best practices people should be following? Are there any essential resources we may not be aware of? They don't have to be on Farm My Past. They could be from anywhere. Anything, let us know. So that's your bonus question of the week. Main question of the week, what have you discovered about the history of a local area or the community that lived in it? Second, what are your top tips for doing this? Let's have a quick look at the comments and see if we've had any questions in already. I can see already Karen Harvey. She's done this. I found the Beckton Gasworks magazine a gold. This is a nice one. I found the Beckton Gasworks magazine a gold mine of tracing family professions and events throughout World War One. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guilds, industries, workplaces would have their own newsletters. If you can dig those out, I mean, that will provide you with an incredibly vivid window into the working lives of your ancestors. And a lot of our ancestors' communities were formed around their professions. Something we're looking forward to seeing in 1921. That is a great one. Thank you, Karen. Let's have another look at another one from Andrew. Has said, question of the week: a will from the 1820s, quite far back, showed that the sleepy agricultural village had a bank and a health insurance scheme, and how some of his descendants lived. Oh wow! So yeah, I'm guessing you wouldn't have thought that such a sleepy rural location would actually have its own bank and health insurance scheme. But yeah, gives you an idea of what the community was like. And you say, I'm not sure many, this is in relation to my son being bitten by a donkey this morning. I'm not sure many others can say this, but, and he's been pecked by a penguin. Where was that? And how did that happen? Have you been to the Arctic? Rosie has said, question of the week from updated newspaper dated the 25th of December 1914. Hadn't really occurred to me before that the onset of World War One had an immediate effect on the seaside towns who relied mainly on tourists for their economic life. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. We think about the people who were impacted, but not necessarily the communities and economies that served them. The war just started as the summer season was about to get underway. Not my own hometown, but lived nearby on holiday there as a child. That's really interesting. I was speaking to someone not that long ago who's a historian who specialised in the history of tourism, and he was saying that this year and last year, in terms of anniversaries, were quite important for Europe because obviously the Riviera and all the European top tourist destinations that have been serving the kind of the bright young things and the wealthy of Britain obviously all had to shut shop due to the First World War, and given the devastation that was inflicted upon France, it took them quite a few years to get back up. And one of the interesting things he told me was that after World War One, because Britain's economy was just so terribly devastated and Brits had so little money, these European tourist destinations actually turned their attention to American tourists. So from 1920, 1921, all the adverts you'd see in these European holiday destinations would normally be were in dollars for the first time, when historically they'd always been in pounds. Just little historical fact for you there. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Ellen has said, yes, I've found out the early 1800s in northern Ohio. In the early 1800s in northern Ohio, Trumbull and Ashtabula counties, sorry if I massacred that pronunciation, that there were mines. Never knew there were mines there before. And I'll do one more before we start talking about this week's records, because we're already 15 minutes in. Ingrid, this is a fantastic tip. If you are interested in local history, I found it really useful to join Facebook groups for the places my ancestors lived in. That's a very good tip. Most have history pages, and I've posted on them many times, and their help has been invaluable. That is a fantastic tip. Thank you very much for sharing it, Ingrid. Right, do keep these questions coming. Just remember, question of the week, what have you discovered about the history of your local area or community? Let us know in the comments, and we will be reading those out. And just as Ingrid shared an excellent tip before, if you do have any tips or tricks for doing this type of research yourself, do let us know. Right. If you can bury your excitement for the quiz, it will be coming shortly. But first and foremost, we do need to take a look at this week's new records, because we have a lot of them. So, what's up new this week? Well, it is a Friday, and what does Friday mean? It means millions, well, not every week, but this week, millions and millions of new records, 22 million records to be exact. And they are all from the United States, spanning all 50 states and a few other locations as well. But yeah, we've got some really interesting and exhaustive US resources this week to share with you. So first up, we have a huge update to our collection of United States obituary notices. We've added over 22 million records to this collection. That means it's now incredibly big. I think I did a blank search before, and there's something like over 79 million records in there. So there are a lot. And it covers all 50 states. There's also some records from the District of Columbia, and there's also some for Puerto Rico in there as well. But if you're looking to track down an ancestor's death record or a full obituary for them, and someone recent, oh no, that was a will someone was mentioning in the comments before. But yeah, these records will be very, very useful if you have ancestors in the United States and you're trying to track down a death record or a full obituary. But they actually do give you quite a bit of information. They're transcript only, but these transcripts will provide you with obviously the first and last name of the deceased. It will provide you with their birth year and death year, both very, very valuable nuggets of biographical information. Actually, I think it doesn't just give you year. In many cases, it will give you the specific birth date and the specific death date. In many cases, you will also find the obituary text as well, which can unlock a whole series of additional clues. Obituaries are fantastic. If you're a bit of an unrelated general tip, obviously newspapers. If you're not looking in a dedicated obituary collection, newspapers are often one of the best things you can search for that. Thankfully, we do have a lot on Find My Past. So if you're ever looking for an obituary, my first part of call always would be a quick newspaper search. But yeah, obituaries are fantastic. They can give you facts and insights into a person's life and achievements that you simply won't find anywhere else. It's often also a good way of finding out how they were viewed by their loved ones and the people that lived around them. Obituaries are important, and that's why we're very pleased to be adding 22 million new records to this big collection as well. So as well as obituary text, I've mentioned this collection is massive, covers all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and District of Columbia. The records obviously will also tell you where the location of that record, the state, and if you go to the transcripts as well, so all this collection has been obtained from two websites, tributes.com and currentobituary.com. And if you go on the transcript for any search result you find here, it will provide you with images and additional details about where the records can be found. So that's always worth checking out if you do want to find the obituary in its original glory. So yeah, lots of US obituaries. Second up, we have a very, very, very interesting and important collection. Something that sheds light on a chapter of history. I was going to say US, but it's world history, really. I always think needs to be explored. It has been explored, but the more it can be explored, the better. And that is our new collection of United States. Oh, sorry, I've got the hiccups all of a sudden. Let me drink some water. A new collection of United States Freedmen's Bureau marriages. What was the Freedmen's Bureau, I hear you ask? Well, it had a few different titles. It was known at various points as the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. Normally, it was just simply referred to as the Freedmen's Bureau. It was a very, very important agency during the early Reconstruction following the American Civil War. And it was set up with the sole purpose of assisting freedmen in the South, in the southern states. It was established in 1865, I believe in March, and operated briefly as a US government agency from about 1865 to 1872. And yeah, its main purpose was to provide assistance of all sorts, really, but it was really to provide direct provisions, clothing, and fuel for this is an original quote: provisions, clothing, and fuel for the immediate and temporary shelter and supply of destitute and suffering refugees and freedmen and their wives and children. So interesting agency. I'll give you a little bit more info on it. So put in place, as I've said, after the Civil War, it was installed to assist people who were previously enslaved start a new life. And I think it's important to bear in mind that this was a sudden and dramatic change for these people. Literally overnight, they went from enslaved, a terrible, terrible thing but it was all they'd known. They're all born into vast majority were born into slavery, and they needed help adjusting. And that's what this bureau was set up to do. But so the records we have on site specifically relate to marriages, and that was the Bureau's attempt to legalize marriages that had occurred during slavery. When, as we all know, slavery was reprehensible and incredibly evil, but there's so many more examples. There's so many examples you can give to show that. Not that you need examples, but slaves were not allowed to marry without their master's permission. They weren't. They even after they were granted their freedom after the Civil War, they were prevented from officiating marriages themselves. So the agency found itself catching up on marriages across the African American community. So these records, there's images as well. They're very historically rich. They reflect both marriages that occurred in the years before and new marriages that occurred immediately after the Civil War. Um, so if you want a bit more formal language, formally, the Bureau of Refugees, Freemen and Abandoned Lands existed to help transition and offer aid to the now 4 million freed African Americans across the country after the abolition of slavery. Um, and it covers a lot of regions, these records. So these records cover the states of Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. Also District of Columbia as well. But yeah, very, very historically rich. Even if you don't have ancestors in these records, I urge you to take a look just to remind yourself of the history and immerse yourself in it, because it's also important to remember that the Reconstruction period was very, very volatile. The Civil War had ended, but the tensions and beliefs that led to it hadn't completely disappeared. In theory, the Bureau was supposed to support the African American community, but just as with any government agency, it was quickly integrated with opportunists. There was also, rampant racism was still very much alive and well. Where, even where the agency was working, and of course, most of the employees of the Bureau were white, so it wasn't nearly as effective as it could have actually been. Yeah, so we're very, very pleased to have these records online. Anytime we can get more material that sheds light on chapters of history such as this, we will jump at the chance to get them. So yeah, if any of you actually expect to find ancestors in these Freedmen records, I would be very, very, very keen to hear from you. So if anybody has done research into some ancestors that were enslaved at some point in history, we'd share your stories. I'm sure we'd really, really love to hear them. So that's the records. We have, and quite frankly, we have a ridiculous amount of newspapers this week. Probably far too many for me to list in full. We have 8. I can tell you the 8. We've got 8 brand new. We've got 8 brand new titles. We add new titles to the archive pretty much every single week. But we've updated 86 existing titles, so there are a lot of newspaper updates to get to grips with this week. The new titles we have include the Law Chronicle, so anybody who has an interest in legal history, or perhaps their ancestors were solicitors, lawyers, or barristers, definitely one for you. Another paper that's going to be very interesting if your ancestors perhaps ended up in the workhouse. We've got the Commercial and Bankruptcy Register, which named and shamed businessmen that had fallen on hard times, a bit reminiscent of the Railway Children. We have the London and China Herald, which reported commercial intelligence between the East and West. You'll find all, and again, that's why I love newspapers. Context is king, and you can find all sorts in there, from the trade prices of silk, tea, and cotton. So good if your ancestors were traders or merchants. Very, very interesting title to read, but also just to get a sense of the kind of commodities and the items that your ancestors would have looked to purchase, what was available in the shops. Yeah, very, very interesting. We also have the London and Provincial News and General Advertiser, the London and Scottish Review, the London Mirror, the Peterborough Express, and the Weekly Review, which was a London title. And if you want to get the full picture of everything that's been added this week, because of course I've just given you quite a lot of information, do visit the What's New section of our blog. I'm sure Jesse can pop a link in the comments pop a link in the comments for you for ease of access. But yeah, just remember, we do add new material every single week, and it can be easy. So I lose track, and I work for Find My Past. So it's always handy to keep up to date and just check that site. Josephine Smith has said, who decides which records to add to FMP? Well, that's a very good question, Josephine. That is actually decided largely by what we call our content and licensing team. These are the hard-working chaps who go out, they scour archives, private collections all over the UK, North America and beyond, to see what is out there and what is available, and whether we can get our hands on them. Often, there's a little bit of discussion based around what to prioritize, but generally, you'll see in our weekly releases, we kind of don't we take the view of nothing is too niche or small. Um, Even if a collection might be very niche or very small, it will be of benefit to somebody, and that's the kind of philosophy we always have when we are looking at getting new material on the site. But a lot of the people that you've seen on your screens have a direct hand in bringing new records online. Miko, very involved. He's done wonders for our Scottish collection. Paul Nixon, Brian Donovan. These are all people who are very Mary, Aoife, all very, very involved with bringing you all the lovely new records that we add to the site each week. Where on earth has the time gone? It's already nearly past, which brings me to, are you feeling clever? Are you feeling quizzical? It's time for this On This Day quiz. Right, we're going to do there's 5 questions now. What we'll do is, I think we'll do question answer, rather than me just doing all the questions and then coming back, because that'll be easier for me to manage, and hopefully more entertaining for you. But the main point of this is it's not really a competition, it's just a bit of fun, and hopefully you will learn something new in the process. Right, I'll do one quick look at, Matthew Donovan, it is indeed quiz time. I've seen some great comments coming in, so I think after the quiz we will take a look at your comments, because I think that will be the best way of exploring our local history topic. Right, quiz time. Are you ready? It's fastest fingers first. Question number 1. A bit of a US theme with some of these questions. Right, on this day in 1863, which famous speech did Abraham Lincoln give? Abraham Lincoln's given many famous speeches, but what was the speech he gave on this day in 1863? Have a think. You can see fingers on buzzers. I think we've already had one answer through. Remember, Abraham Lincoln gave which famous speech on this day in 1863? You're all incredibly clever, because you're all nailing it in one. You're right. It was indeed the Gettysburg Address. So congratulations to Robin, Kim, Matthew, Andrew, Linda, Janine, Janet, Kathy. You were very, very, very fast. You answered that almost immediately. I'm very impressed. Yes, on this day, in 1863, Lincoln gave his world-famous Gettysburg Address. This was at the dedication of the National Cemetery at Gettysburg, November 19th, 1863, the site where the decisive battle took place back in July 1863, 1st of 3rd of July. A little bit of context for you. The main address at the dedication ceremony was actually a 2-hour speech given by a guy called Edward Everett, who was actually the best-known orator of the time. I love this. This is just one of those historical facts, but weren't they a little bit kooky and eccentric back in the day? Obviously, this was a very serious event, because Gettysburg was, tragedy. Many men lost their lives. But Edward Everett was one of the best known orators of his time, and he was steeped in the tradition of ancient Greek oratory, and that's the approach he took. His speech was a staggering 13,000 words long. It took him 2 hours to deliver, and he did it without notes. I mean, I need notes to do a 1-hour live broadcast, and that's with you guys helping me out in the comments. Everett delivered his 13,000 word long speech without notes, off the top of his head. It included allusions to the Battle of Marathon. As I said, he was steeped in this tradition of Greek oratory, made comparisons with the English Civil Wars, the Wars of the Roses, wars in German, French, and Italian history, along with a dissection of the Confederate Rebellion, and an exhaustive description of the events that led up to the battle itself. And obviously, I'm not going to read you the full speech, because we'd be here until gone 7 o'clock. But I can tell you how he concluded it. He concluded it by saying, "The whole earth," said Pericles, as he stood over the remains of his fellow citizens who had fallen in the first year of the Peloponnesian War, "the whole earth is the sepulchre of illustrious men. All time," he might have added, "is the millennium of their glory. Surely I would do no justice to the other noble achievements of the war, which have reflected such honour on both arms of the service, and have entitled the armies and the navy of the United States, their officers and men, to the warmest thanks and the richest rewards which a grateful people can pay. But they, I am sure, will join us in saying, as we bid farewell to the dust of these martyr heroes, that wheresoever throughout the civilized world the accounts of this great warfare are read, and down to the latest period of recorded time, in the glorious annals of our common country, there will be no brighter page than that which relates to the battles of Gettysburg. There you go. So, yeah, that gives you a flavour for the 13,000 word speech. Right, well done to everybody who got that right. Sally, 2 hours. Yeah, I think I would have glazed over as well, even though Everett was apparently an amazing orator. 2 hours is a long time. And as you could tell by his closing section, it was probably a little bit verbose, but oh well. Question number 2. I think this is an easy one. I think this is another easy one, but we shall see. Right. On this day in 1620, which famous ship arrived at Cape Cod? I think this is an easy one. I think this is an easy one. On this day in 1620, which famous ship arrived at Cape Cod? I'll give you a few minutes to answer that. A few people get answering already. Just to repeat, on this day in 1620, which famous ship arrived at Cape Cod? Of course, it was the Mayflower. Of course, it was the Mayflower. So, but still, well done to those who did get it right. Kathy, Kim, Ellen, you guys are on fire. Linda, Janine, Janet, Denise, Karen, almost. Oh, Matthew nearly forgot the name of it. Yeah, well done. Actually, that's true, Daphne. Actually, yes. No questions are either easy or hard. You either know it or not. That is very true. Actually, yeah. No, sorry, you're right. I should have you should have phrased it that way. And you're right. There are some incredibly quick typists here. But yes, it was indeed the Mayflower. On the 19th of November, the intrepid crew sighted present-day Cape Cod. They actually spent several days trying to sail south to their planned destination of Virginia, where they obtained permission to settle from the Company of Merchant Adventurers. So that's what I was going to say. It wasn't as if they were the first to arrive. The Company of Merchant Adventurers and other organisations had been in North America already. But yeah, 19th of November 1620 was when the Mayflower sighted Cape Cod. And yeah, they intended to go to Virginia, but strong winter seas had forced them to return to the harbour at Cape Cod Hook, known today as Provincetown Harbour. And they set anchor there on November the 21st. So well done to all of you who got those right. I do enjoy these quizzes, and I hope you do too. Roxanne, oh, stepped away for a second and missed my chance to answer. Yeah, this is pretty good, pretty good, pretty good, pretty fast. But no, you're all doing very, very well. There are no winners here. Anybody who gives it a go is a winner in my mind. Right, one near you. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Nearly at the end of the quiz. I think this is a good one. This is a good one. So, question number 3. On this day in 1942, Soviet forces launched Operation Uranus, turning the tide of which major World War II battle? So on this day in 1942, Soviet forces launched Operation Uranus, Uranus, how you want to say it, turning the tide of which major battle? Oh, we got some clever people out there. Yeah, it is. Well done, Matthew. Well done, Andrew. Well done, Linda. Well done, Janet. It was Stalingrad. It was indeed. Um, So yeah, sorry, I was getting messages from a colleague then, which threw me off slightly. But yes, on this day, 1942, Operation Uranus was launched. This was the code name of the Red Army's big 19th to 20th November strategic operation on the Eastern Front, which basically led to the encirclement of the Axis forces in the vicinity of Stalingrad. This was huge. This was really one of the big turning points of the Second World War. They encircled the German Sixth Army, the Third and Fourth Romanian armies, portions of the German Fourth Panzer Army. And this came at pretty much the midpoint of the 5-month long Battle of Stalingrad. You know, terrible, terrible, terrible battle. Probably one of the worst in human history. But this was the turning point. Planning had commenced in September 1942. It developed simultaneously with plans to destroy the German Army Group Center, which was called Operation Mars, and the German forces in the Caucasus. Basically, the Red Army did a very tried and tested Russian tactic, which was taking advantage of the German army's poor preparation for winter. And it won. It worked. They completely encircled German forces, spelling the beginning of the end for the German efforts to invade and occupy Soviet Union. So congratulations to everybody who got that right. We're nearly there. 2 more questions, and I promise the last one is a fun one. So, on this day in 1969, American astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean became the sorry for my typo, third and fourth humans to do what exactly? The clue is probably in their occupation, so give you a bit of time. On this day in 1969, American astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean became the third and fourth humans to do what? Matthew Donovan, you are on fire. Yes, that is the correct answer. It is walk on the moon. Not just land on the moon, walk on the moon. So this was the Apollo 12 mission. It was the 6th crewed flight in the United States Apollo program and the second to land on the moon. It was launched November 14th at the Kennedy Space Center, and Commander Charles Pete Conrad and lunar module pilot Alan L. Bean performed just over 1 day and 7 hours of lunar surface activities, while another command module pilot, Richard F. Gordon, remained in lunar orbit. The original plan was for the 2 men, Bean and Conrad, to actually become the first men to walk on the moon if Neil Armstrong's mission had failed. But of course, Apollo 11 was a blinding success, so they became the third and fourth men to walk on the surface of the moon. And as a result of Armstrong and Aldrin's success, their mission was postponed by 2 months. The Apollo 12 spacecraft was pretty much identical to the one that Buzz Aldrin and I was going to say Buzz Lightyear then. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong went in. One extra addition, which I thought was quite cute, was a hammock, and this basically allowed Conrad and Bean to kind of kick back on the moon. I love that, taking a nap in a hammock on the moon. Something quite romantic-y sounding about that, actually. That'd make a cool painting, wouldn't it? Anyway, yeah, it worked. Actually, I've got another cool fact about this for you. For all you budding conspiracy theorists out there, so Conrad and Bean, they achieved a very precise landing. They walked within a safe distance of their robotic probe, but they carried a load of gear with them. They were mainly doing geological experiments. They carried a surface experiment package, a group of nuclear-powered scientific instruments, as well as the first ever color television camera taken by an Apollo mission to the lunar surface. But perhaps conveniently, if you are a conspiracy theorist, I'm not. I actually do think the moon landings happened. Transmission was lost because Bean accidentally pointed his color camera at the sun, and its sensor was destroyed. Of course, it was. Now, and so sadly, none of the footage of this moonwalk survives, or so NASA say. But there you go. Right. Well done to everybody who got that right. You're doing very, very well. To the moon and beyond. And as Matthew said, to infinity and beyond. I'm actually really looking forward to the new Buzz Lightyear film. That's going to be good. Definitely one small step. Right. This is the last question, and I think this is the funnest one. Right. You get a bonus point if you're able to provide any additional information, namely the name of. No, I'm giving too much away. Right. Question 5. On this day in 1916, Samuel Goldwyn and Edgar Selwyn established the Goldwyn Picture Company. This led to the creation of which iconic logo? You just say what the logo is. So on this day describe the logo. What was the logo? On this day in 1916, Samuel Goldwyn and Edgar Selwyn established the Goldwyn Pictures Company, which went on to become, actually, no, that's probably giving too much information. This led to the creation of which iconic logo? Let's see. And yes, well done. Well done. You guys are nailing the quiz this week. It was indeed the lion, or as he's now known, Leo the lion. Big congratulations to, wow, yeah, lots of people got this. Sally, John, Robin, Matthew, Anya, Rosie, Linda, Roxanne, Pickles, that's a great name, Flo, Diane. Well done. You guys are, yeah, I'm genuinely impressed. But I'll give you a little bit of information and then we'll talk about local history. So, yeah, it was the Lion. Goldwyn Picture Corporation operated on it independently from 1916 to 1924. Then it merged with two other production companies to form the major studio, MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer. It proved moderately successful in its early days, but it was the establishment of its iconic Leo the Lion trademark that made it the kind of cultural icon it is to today. And since so the logo itself was actually launched in 1924. And since then, there have been 8 Metro Goldwyn Lions. The very first one was called Slats. We've got to give credit where credit is due. Slats was the very first lion from 1924 to 1928, I believe. And Slats was Irish. Slats was an Irish immigrant to the United States. He was actually born at Dublin Zoo on March the 20th, 1919. And he was originally renamed Cairbre, charioteer in Gaelic. For those who don't speak Gaelic, I count myself among your number. So Slats was originally used on an all black and white was used on all black and white MGM films from 1924 to 1928. And one of the things that I found quite interesting was, unlike his successors, Slats didn't roar. He did nothing but look around, making him the only MGM lion to not roar. However, it is rumored that his trainer had trained him to growl on cue. But of course, that was pointless because synchronized sound would not be used in motion pictures until 1927. But yeah, it was used as the company's logo in honor because one of the founders attended Columbia, so the Columbia Lion was it was a tribute to his alma mater at Columbia University. And I think the school's fight song was Roar Lion Roar, which inspired him to make this incredibly famous logo we all know and love today. Slats died in 1936 and is buried in Gillette, New Jersey. And there was a tree planted over his grave to keep the lion's spirit down. And since Slats immortalized the company, there have been 7 other lions. Jackie, who went from 1928 to 1956. Bill the Lion, 1927 to 1928. Telly the Lion from 1928 to 1932. Coffee from 32 to 35. Tanner from 34 to 1967. George from 1956 to 1963. And Leo, the longest serving MGM lion, who I'd be amazed if he's still alive, but has been the face of MGM from 1957 to the present day. Well done to everybody. Right, quiz is out of the way. You're all very intelligent. Pat yourselves on the back. Kim, I have a question for Alex. Which footballer scored his 1,000th goal on this day in 1969? I know the answer to this because this was a question I considered putting in. That was none other, the man himself, Pele. So, bonus point to me. I've got one from Matthew. Okay, here's one from you. Which future Prime Minister of India was born on this day in 1917? Is it Gandhi? That's my guess, and I'm sticking to it. I think it might be Gandhi. No, that would make him a bit young. I don't know. That's my guess. Questions are coming in through. Which Gandhi? I was going to say Mahatma, but I think that's wrong. Linda's saying Indira. Quizzing the quizmaster. I like it. A few people saying they've got lovely memories. Oh, Sue, when I visited MGM Casino in Vegas about 20 years ago, they had real lions that would walk across a glass bridge above your head. And Victoria's saying she's got fond memories of watching MGM films with her grandmother too, often on BBC Two and then much later on Channel 4. A few people, yeah. Tom and Jerry. Yeah, and you're saying I remember it from watching lots of course, yeah, the MGM line was in the Tom and Jerry cartoons. I hadn't even made that connection. Right, in the 15 minutes we've got left, let's have a quick look at local history, because the question of the week was, what have you discovered about the history of your local area and community, and how did you do it? Right, well, I had more tips to share with you, but as usual, I've run massively over time. So I'll go through my top line ones, and then we will start looking at some of the wonderful comments you guys have been sharing. So these are my 5 tips. So if you're conducting historical research into a local area, it'll be a lot easier if you direct it towards some clear and hopefully realistic objectives. So first off, establish some research questions. Note down what it is you're looking to discover. So these will hopefully narrow your field of vision and provide you with a clear purpose, because we all know how easy it is to disappear down the blooming rabbit hole when we're doing historical research. I'm terrible for it. I'll be looking at one document, and the next thing I know, I've wasted an hour and a half. Well, not wasted, nothing's wasted, but I've spent an hour and a half reading newspaper articles or pouring through military service records, completely unrelated to what it was I'd actually set out to do. But anyway, so say you're looking to get a sense of politics in the local area and you want to research the history of a particular political party. You could be very interested in loads of different aspects of the organisation, but you can't, at the beginning, you can't hope to look at all of them. So you're looking at, Labour, post-war Labour. This isn't local research, this is general, but these are just some examples I could think of. You could focus your questions, for example, around a particularly important moment in the local party's history. So say we're looking at Labour. Why did Labour win in 1945? Did the Second World War change political attitudes? What were the consequences of the 45 election? That gives you a framework to start having a little dig around. My second tip, first tip would be establish a framework, set your goals, and write yourself some questions that you want answered. And you will eventually branch off into other directions. It's inevitable. I know what we're all like, but start out with some clear parameters and some targets. Second, read your sources critically. As historians or family historians, we're not. I think it's fair. I always like to think we're not mere chroniclers of events. We don't just organize facts into order. Our job is also to evaluate them and arrive at our own judgments and gather our own insights. And I think this is a process. And this process begins with approaching historical sources, raw materials, records on the site, whatever you want to call them, in a very particular way. So don't just take their immediate message. Look around the immediate records. Read between read between the lines. See what else you can tease out that isn't necessarily glaring you in the face. So say, for example, you're doing local history and you find a map. I don't know, a map that was produced in the 18th century or something. And if you want to use this map to better understand the moment it was produced, ask yourself some questions. So, like, what are the choices the cartographer made when putting this map together? How does the map represent certain territories? And do these representations have any kind of political implications? Are there any underlying assumptions that could have informed the cartographer's approach? What does the map even mean? Why was it created in the first place? Who would have been looking at it? And what might it have meant to contemporary readers who were looking at it for the first time? These are all things that's worth noting down. On a similar note, my third tip would be think about the things that you cannot see. Obviously, when we're looking at historical sources, our attention is always drawn towards the things that are there, the things we can see. But it's also worth considering things that aren't, things that are left out, and gaps or silences that might expose some of the meanings contained within whatever source it is you're looking at. So say you're looking at newspaper reports, something that documents or describes a particular sequence of events. Did the author, or could the author, have failed to note some information that we might have expected them to provide? Might they have omitted anybody, or do you suspect they could have omitted anyone from the story? By asking yourself these questions, you're kind of casting your net a little bit wider and just reminding yourself to think outside the box and don't take everything at face value. My fourth tip would be wary of anachronism. Values, meanings, or ideas would be different at different points in time. I mean, this is a very, very important point when you're searching newspapers. Always remember to search in the language of the day. Um, when I'm looking for anything weird and wonderful, if I say if I'm looking in a Victorian newspaper, this is the example I always give. If I type in weird story or weird event, nothing's going to come back. If I type in singular, a singular occurrence, all of a sudden I've got thousands and thousands of newspaper articles to work my way through. So think of the language of the day, consider anachronism, um, and just remember when you're encountering a term or concept that might feel familiar to you in the present, bear in mind it might have had a completely different meaning 100 years ago. I mean, even a simple one, freedom. In the present, this is a term we tend to describe like, what's the way of the absence of constraint, I guess. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Not Webster's dictionary, just this. I think in the present we use the term freedom to describe it. I guess an absence of constraint, but this meaning is. I think it's fair to say this is more of a modern one. Prior to the 18th century, it was not common for it to refer to the status of individual. Basically, yeah, prior to the 18th century, it was common for it to refer to the status of individuals who were not slaves. So if you see a term like freedom appearing from something that's pre-modern, avoid imposing a more recent meaning upon it. I hope that makes sense. I think I probably gave you a bit of a garbled explanation of that one, but I do think that is useful. And if you're wondering what's the best way of avoiding anachronism, that is place your evidence in the wider context by looking at the environment in which it was produced. You could do this by making reference to other sources that produce at the same time, or thinking about the social or economic conditions that might have determined the way that people then thought and behaved and expressed themselves. My final tip would be, apart from looking online, which I don't think I really need to recommend that to you because you know that already, would be ask for help. Someone posted a great tip before, which was join a local Facebook group. Join your local history society or family history society. Not only will they be experts, they may well have resources that aren't online and you can't access anywhere else. Join a forum, the Find My Past forum. But yeah, collaborate, work alongside others, and ask for help. So those would be my tips. I'm going to have a quick in the 5 minutes we have remaining. Matthew, of course it wasn't the Hat Me. He would have been too young in Matthew. Oops, yes, it was Indira. So that was the future Prime Minister of India, born on this day in 1917. Yeah. Oh, what have I done? I opened a can of worms here. We should all send a few questions for Alex each week that we can. Yeah, good idea. I'm open for that. That sounds good fun. I love a quiz. Yeah. All right, Janine. This is one we look at. Whole Friday session on genealogical trivia would be fun. We'll pop that down. Right. So let's have a quick look. Question of the week. Pickles has said, one thing I do with censuses is to look at the occupations of my aunt. Yes, this is a great one. And one of the reasons we're so incredibly excited for the 1921 census, because it doesn't just list occupation, it lists employer and sometimes the materials that were worked with. That is a great one. An absolutely fantastic one. One thing I do with censuses is look at the occupations of my ancestors' neighbours to get a feel of the area at that point in time. I've had loads of fun with that. I grew up on the Wirral, place not that far from where my parents lived. Port Sunlight was the home of the entire workforce for Lord Leverhume's Sunlight soap factory. And looking at the census returns for Port Sunlight during that era are amazing because every single one of them works in soap manufacture. But yeah, that's a really, really good tip. Let's have another few ones. So Anya's saying, not a fan of quizzes, but you took part, so you're a very good sport. Thank you. Let's have a quick look. Oh, Josephine Smith recommending a book. I've just bought a book called Timelines for Family Historians from Pen and Sword. Yeah, Pen and Sword books are fantastic. It's totally up to date and helps putting events into perspective. Let's have another quick look for some more questions. I can see a few people are dropping off. I suspect you're going to join Fiona for the Irish Family History session. So I will leave you to your weekends very shortly. But thanks to everybody who has tuned in today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Oh, Kim said, my dad's cousin held talks with NASA. They used the images from the telescope in Australia to beam it into living rooms. Oh, wow. That's a great fact. One of the things I love about doing these is I often come away learning something new myself. Let's have a look. Oh wow! Fact from Jesse: German army lost a massive 500,000 soldiers at Stalingrad. That's insane. Um, one more. This is from. We'll end with Moira's. Moira said, Walton, a little village way back in the 17th century, became the ideal place for Ambrose Crowley, the ironmaster, to set up his industry of ironworks. His father was an ironmonger in Stourbridge. Ambrose wanted to leave and go on his own, so he left and went to Sunderland, brought workers over from Belgium. Oh wow, experts in making nails. Conditions weren't right, and bullying of his workers, so he looked around and found Winleton near Gateshead, Durham. Unfortunately, I can't read the rest of the comments, but that sounds like that's a great example of what you've discovered about your local area. So thank you very much for sharing. So many comments. Let me see if I can do one more. Yeah, let's do one more from Robin Wilson, and then I will bid you all fond farewell. Question of the week. My grandfather's family were one of the largest hatting families. Oh, wow. That's it's yeah, that's quite like mad as a hatter. It's quite an iconic historical occupation, isn't it? So they were one of the largest hatting families in Athelston, Warwickshire, since the 17th century. By the 20th, the decline of the hatting industry, much of the area had been left in disrepair, and there's been a devastating effect on the workforce. And although companies like 3M did bring business to the area, wow, that's a good one. And you know what? We're going to do one more. Elaine. Thank you, Elaine. Elaine said, by doing my family tree, I've discovered that through the 1890s and 1900s, my grandfather lived in the street I've been living in for the last 40 years. That led me to investigate what this street of tenements was like in his day. I was astonished to discover there was a riding school at the bottom of the street. Yeah, you wouldn't think that. A riding school would probably be for you had to be relatively wealthy to own and ride a horse. So having that on the same street as a block of tenements is quite surprising. Didn't expect that. In addition to the dozens and dozens of families that were being crammed into all the tenement flats. Isn't local history wonderful? Right, on that note, with 1 minute to spare, I'm going to leave you all and check on my poor. I can hear my son's just got in. I'm going to check on his poor donkey bitten fingers. But yeah, a few people said Fiona isn't on today. Well, yeah, thank you to everybody who tuned in. As always, I had an absolute blast, and I hope you did too. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Have wonderful weekends. Stay safe. Actually, I'm going to leave you with a plea. Last thing I will do is a call for help. So we're very, as you all know, we're very excited for the launch of the 21 census in January next year. We're really looking forward to it. One of the things we are very keen to do as well is speak to any centenarians who they would have only been babies, I imagine, but anybody who was alive when the census was taken and may well be in it. We think this would be a really lovely way of bringing the documents to life and reminding people that it's not that long ago. It's history, but in arm's reach. So if anybody knows any particularly sprightly and sparky centenarians who could be willing to share their memories of life in the 1920s, do send us a direct message or contact our customer support team. We would absolutely love to hear from you, and we would love to explore their family histories with them and create a bit of a who do you think you are experience. So yeah, get in touch. But thanks for everybody. Yeah, I'm sure Alfie's fine. I can hear him laughing, so I think he'll be okay. But yeah, this has been great fun. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Take it easy. Bye now.